So if you're someone who's throwing wrist angles too soon, struggling with low point, fats and thins, hitting it too high and short, how your pelvis motion works and that tilt and going down and forward can be a key indicator of that and a piece to be able to fix that.
Absolutely, it directly influences it, right? We understand that our brain's trying to hit a ball that's on the ground. If we start making something go away from the ground, we need to make something get closer to the ground.
And so that's a good way to look at that.
That's essentially what happens. So
if we make something go farther from the ground, someone's got to get closer to it.
Yeah, so if we make something get closer to the ground, someone's got to stay away from the ground.
That's a JT gold nugget. We'd like to thank Element for sponsoring today's video. Poor energy levels affect strength, stamina, and focus, which I find for my students are often the biggest reasons why they struggle late into their rounds. Element is a fantastic on-the-go solution for beating dehydration. Drinking water and using a regular electrolyte replacement needs to be a part of your regular golfing preparation. Element is a drink that replaces essential electrolytes without sugar, coloring, gluten, or artificial ingredients. It contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, 60 milligrams magnesium, formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs. Right now, Element is offering my viewers a sample pack with any order. That's 8 single-serving packets free with any Element order. This is a great way to try all 8 flavors or share Element with a friend. You can get yours at drinkelement.com/ecgolf, and the deal is only available through this link. To perform at your physical best every single day, proper hydration is key. All right, what's up guys? In today's video, we're gonna talk about a move that you need to have in your swing to make the downswing a whole heck of a lot easier. It's what JT showed me, and when I learned how to move my body correctly to start down and put these moves in, it literally made everything else so much easier. JT coached this into my swing a couple years ago. I see him work with a lot of our members on this. It works really, really good. There's really 2 key aspects we're gonna talk about, and a couple of things that each one of those do. It's how the lower segment of your body needs to work and the upper segment of the body. It might be some different things you haven't heard before. So hopefully these will help you with your swing motion. JT, let's give kind of a broad overview and then we'll dive into the details. In this video, if we talk about how the hips need to work to start the downswing compared to how the upper body needs to work and what the effects are of both of those, why don't we start with the hip motion, what that needs to do, and really the 1 or 2 key things that does for us.
Yeah, for sure. So the first movement that we're really looking to have in the downswing is to get some left pelvic tilt, which basically just means the left side of the pelvis getting lower than the right side of the pelvis. We can demonstrate this really easy by alignment stick. You can put it through the belt loops. Main point of this is to actually move the low point forward, which is a really big deal. Most people struggle with low point control, right? And then also get some force on the club. So help us get some lag, if you want to call it. But essentially, again, it just helps move the low point forward.
And so moving the low point forward, right, would be hitting the ball consistently solid.
Yes.
Getting the hips to move correctly, getting that pelvic tilt, will help us hit ball first, ground second.
Yep.
And then, like you said, the force on the shaft for some of the lag piece. Why don't we pop this through your belt loops there for a second, just to show that.
Yep.
And so, JT, this hip motion when we start down, would you say this is a universal thing that everyone needs to do? Is this for certain type of golfers?
Well, I think we've talked about this a little bit before. You see it in the group all the time, certain patterns of this. But I would say every golfer needs to have some left pelvic tilt on the way down. Now we'll talk about the corresponding shoulder movements, but yes, every person needs to do this.
Yeah.
So what we're looking to have happen, you can make this stick a little bit longer on this front side so that you can take a backswing. But essentially what we're looking to have happen in the downswing is this movement of the left hip getting lower to start the downswing. So you notice this orange side is higher now than the white side. And again, what that helps us do is put a force on the club here down and forward, a butt of the club down and forward to help us move the low point forward. So if you can imagine kind of perpendicular forces almost, right, on this, on my pelvis going this way, and then also on the club going that way. So now we have these perpendicular forces here helping us move the low point forward and hitting some really nice shots.
And so if you take your setup there, JT, if your setup position, your hips are basically level, right? Now, when you make your backswing, depending upon the person, the lead hip will be some amount lower than the trail hip.
Yes.
And so how much of this is like, hey, it's already lower, it's just staying lower? Or is it more of like, hey, I actually want to increase that sensation?
Yeah, it's definitely something you want to increase, especially for speed, for power. You can preset it a little bit as long as you don't lose it. So, you know, a lot of times it's easier for people to go from a position where they have a little bit of wiggle room to move into it. If you feel like it's a little bit harder, dynamic of a move, you can just build it in more in the backswing.
Got it.
So, you know, again, as we go back here, left hip's going to be definitely lower than the right up at the top. Some people have more, some people have less.
Right.
But, you know, the goal is definitely, if we can, to try increase it. And so you notice again, bam, that stick, you guys can see that pretty easily.
Yeah.
Start to go down here as I start the downswing.
And is that kind of a similar sensation, if we go up to the top there, JT, as that increase the pelvic tilt, left side lower than right, is it almost too feeling like this sort of angle on the left side of your body is maybe decreasing a little bit? Be like a similar sensation for someone as they're feeling that?
Yes, for sure. So another sensation, a way to think about it, so you guys can probably see it better from this view, would be to increase this angle, right? So this angle here. So we're increasing that angle, that adds tilt to the pelvis.
Yeah, okay.
So that's another way you can think about it too, using kind of your, you know, your body, your ribs as a way to feel it.
Okay. And then if we do, let's put that club on the side of the shaft to kind of show the force in the shaft part.
Yep.
So if we're doing this correctly, and sort of the left hip when we're doing the pelvic tilt, what we would tell a student as like a simple 101 version is when you start down, right, the lead hip should work some amount down towards the ground and forward towards the target.
Yes.
Right, that's the sensation. And if we do that correct, let's show them the good version of the force in the shaft, sort of the lag part, right, if you're somebody who struggles with this. So as JT moves the hip down and forward, we're going to notice the bottom part still points down towards the ground, meaning he has some force into that shaft. He's not throwing his angles too soon. Whereas if let's do the exaggerated bad version, the hip goes up right away. Right away, see how this now is not pointed down towards the ground. In fact, if he really exaggerated, this would even start to kind of feel like it points up towards the sky.
Yes.
So if you're someone who's throwing wrist angles too soon, struggling with low point, fats and thins, hitting it too high and short, how your pelvis motion works and that tilt and going down and forward can be a key indicator of that and a piece to be able to fix that.
Absolutely, it directly influences it, right? We understand that our brain's trying to hit a ball that's on the ground. If we start making something go away from the ground, we need to make something get closer to the ground.
Oh, that's a good way to look at that.
That's essentially what happens. So
if we make something go farther from the ground, someone's got to get closer to it.
Yeah, so if we make something get closer to the ground, someone's got to stay away from the ground.
That's a JT gold nugget. Why don't we hit one? Let me grab that alignment rod. And let's just hit one and just kind of rehearse maybe one or two of those little feels. Left hip is going down and forward. And JT, that's like right away to start the downswing?
Right away.
Okay.
Yep. So going up here to the top.
Down and forward.
That kind of motion there.
Down and forward.
Yep. And then just kind of bump one out.
Cruise one out. Yep. And if you do that correctly, what you should get, or it's at least a big piece of getting, and for me was a big piece when I learned this, ball first, ground second, compression. So that's really the point of this first part, low point control, solidness of contact. Now, where your upper body goes with that, right, is going to dictate some other things.
For sure.
So you could have the pelvic tilt correct, you could have the hip go down and forward, and depending upon what the second part was, this is a big eye opener for me, that's going to control a lot of where the club path and angle of attack is.
Exactly.
Why don't we show, let's do correct first, and then we'll go through some bad options. So JT, as you come down and the left hip goes down and forward, what are we looking for with the right shoulder?
Yeah, so what we're looking for with the right shoulder is this, this left pelvic tilt is a leftward piece, a down piece, a forward piece. So we need something to help bring the path back to the right, and also kind of even move the low point some back to the right because we don't want it too far forward as well. So always trying to balance these keys. So what we're trying to see here is left pelvic tilt increase and then right shoulder decrease. So trying to get the right shoulder a little bit lower to match that pelvic tilt that we have.
So like the left hip is getting farther from the left shoulder.
Yes.
While the right hip and right shoulder are getting closer.
Exactly, yes.
So left side's lengthening, right side's shortening.
Yes, that's the way it's going to feel.
And that's right away.
That's right away.
Start down, okay.
Yeah, and so we're going to feel that again in conjunction of each other. We're just trying to balance out these forces. So when you're first learning to do this, like we talked about before, just trying to get this pelvic tilt, that's really important. We need to move the low point forward first. Got to have good
solid
contact.
first.
We got to hit it solid first.
Okay.
So if you're working on this, I would always start with working on the pelvic tilt, trying to hit it solid. If you start overcutting them or pulling them too much, that's where we start to work on the right shoulder to bring everything back into alignment. So again, what that would look like for us is just that right shoulder literally getting lower. So as we get up to the top here, left shoulder is going to be slightly lower than the right. We're going to need to start down where the right shoulder now starts to get lower as that pelvic tilt increases. And you can do this really honestly with the alignment sticks. So we'll throw these back in here quick, just so you guys can see it much easier. You can use 2 alignment sticks to do this as well. Let's go ahead and put this in here.
So like one with the hips, one across the shoulders.
Exactly, one here, one across the shoulders. So now we have this understanding of this movement here, left shoulder here. We don't want these to be looking the same.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So when they're looking the same, then that's going to be two left bias, two across. They're going to try to have to fix something. So what we're looking to have happen is one of these gets lower, the other one of the left side gets lower, the right side gets lower. So those are kind of the matchups we're trying to have. Left side lower, right side lower.
And the big key, JT, when you do the right side piece, and let's show this from down the line. Let's take a setup there. You can leave that stick in. And let's go up to the top and then pause at the top. So if we do the right side, right shoulder to right hip side bend correctly, that helps the club path stay from inside, right? And it also helps shallow the angle of attack. And so the left pelvic tilt, like JT mentioned, you do that, that's gonna make you hit a little more down on the ball, move the low point more forward, kind of lower the flight. And then the right shoulder going down shallows out that club head, helps us swing from inside. Why don't we briefly just kind of show some of the bad versions, and then we'll get back into the good ones. So let's take your setup. So one of the bad ones we'll see a lot is the left hip will go down, but the right shoulder stays too high. And you'll see this from down the line. Obviously there, the shaft gets too steep, too far out in front of them. And JT, that's probably gonna be too far down and left. Low shots, pulls, fades, pad contact, probably less distance than normal. So that would be option number one we see a lot, is the right shoulder stays too high as the left hip goes down. That'd be like an X, that'd be a bad version. The other bad would be the left hip actually goes up right away as the right shoulder goes down. And that's like a double negative, right? Then what do we got? The shaft's too shallow.
Too shallow, fat shots, push shots, slices.
Hooks, push hooks. You get both of them from there.
You get both of them from there.
So that's probably like a better player problem. But you would get, inconsistent contact, etc. So the key here, what makes everything so easy, once you learn this, again, we're going through the details of it, but it's really just left hip down, right shoulder down. Left hip down and forward, right shoulder down and forward, right? When we get out of the details. So just depending upon where you're at on those patterns we discussed, that's when you learn what you need to feel. So if the player, JT's like, hey, I'm hitting it solid, but it's low, pull, fade, they likely need more
right shoulder.
If the player's like, hey, I'm hitting it high, but big pushes, maybe push fades over hooks, I probably need more
left shoulder down.
Or
sorry, left
hip down, and maybe less right shoulder down. Right?
Correct.
So I think from an overall understanding perspective, that's pretty good. Now, if we were going to practice this, let's grab this out of there. If we were going to hit balls, you said, hey, in the beginning, probably just start with the pelvic tilt. Just start with the hip piece. And then you would kind of slowly start to blend those two feels together, I'd assume?
So what I try to do is definitely work on the pelvic tilt first. We're trying to improve the contact. We're trying to move the low point forward. Again, most people have low point too far back. So if you're watching the video, it's probably you. So
if you struggle with fats and thins.
So what I would do is first is kind of take just some half swings, trying to feel that left hip get lower there. And again, you can use that if you want. You can put the alignment stick in there. You don't necessarily have to. And then just bunt them out there. If anything, trying to hit the ball. If I hit it a little thin, that would be much better than hitting it fat for the purpose of this drill. The ball should definitely go a little bit lower.
For the left pelvic tilt part?
For the left pelvic tilt part.
So part one, left pelvic tilt only.
Exactly. So I'm going to go here, really try to get a lot of left pelvic tilt.
Super compressed,
maybe like a tiny baby fade, right? That would be perfect. That would what we'd be looking to have happen.
And just to add this back into the shaft in the beginning, if they were doing that, maybe they can have that shaft and to show the force in the shaft, where that would stay pointed down early. Let's just do one or two more of those.
Exactly.
And then we can take that out when you hit.
So we're going here, then we're getting to the left pelvic tilt, bam, like, okay, that just moved the butt of the club or moved the force right at the ball. Moved it forward and front. That's what we want.
So literally, they can get the alignment rod pointed right at the ball when they do that.
Right at the ball.
Left hip down and forward, alignment rod at the ball.
Bam. So now you see that moves everything right in front of the ball. The force on the club is pointing right at the ball. That means that when it does line up, bam, the head's going to be in the opposite direction.
So let me grab that. And then we'll hit one with that sensation.
Same thing.
Left hip down and forward, stick at the ball.
Feeling that force at the ball, really nice.
Again, very solid and compressed. And that's like a little bunt 7-iron that's probably like 160 yards. So then, okay, I want to get it higher and farther. I've done, let's say we fast forward, I've done maybe 10 or whatever of those. And then now I'm going to start to feel that shoulder piece in. And one of the key things, JT, if you can go up to the top of the swing and show a good version. So part of, like JT said, balancing things out, as the hip goes down and forward and the shoulder goes down, if you drew a circle around his head, combining those two like a pie chart, 50-50 of each, would just keep him fairly centered. Go ahead and do the downswing piece. That would keep him pretty much on the ball when he does it. If he did any version of the bad one, so if you're like, hey, how do I know if I'm doing this enough? Let's do the bad where this goes down, but the shoulder stays high, the head goes forward.
Perfect.
So we're gonna notice with that, you see the head goes too far forward towards the target, shaft gets steep. And then let's do the bad version, this hip up, this up. Now you'll notice his head goes too far back, the shaft goes under. So one of the things you relax, I just think one of the things we would give someone as a like checkpoint of how do I know outside of just the golf ball is I should be able to balance out my left hip down and my right shoulder down to the point where I'm staying fairly centered.
Fairly centered,
right? It's a good way to feel it.
Yeah, really easy checkpoint there.
I just want to add that in. Let's hit one or two with just that sensation.
Yep.
So left hip's down and forward, the right shoulder's down and forward, really, right?
Exactly, yep, absolutely.
Left hip down and forward, right shoulder down and
just
forward.
giving those a couple rehearsals, trying to get that feeling.
And are you feeling like a right side crunch there for that
Yeah, exactly. Feeling a little bit of crunch in my ribs, kind of right in the middle part of my body.
Okay.
And again, you can just, the more you need it, depending on the shot, that's how you change your swing every time, right? We gave you the reference points. If you're hitting these certain shots, this is how you change it.
So what would they see ball flight wise? So like, let's say they're like, okay, if they wanted to do more of this, they would want to see the ball go higher.
Yes.
And more draw bias.
Exactly, more draw bias.
Okay. So more right side bend, higher, more draw bias.
Yep. So here I would just kind of transition now from just my left pelvic tilt to then adding in some feeling on my right side crunch a little bit, should hit a little higher, a little bit more draw bias.
And we're doing both of those. Yeah, beautiful. So that was a nice high, probably a 5-yard draw.
Yeah.
We're doing both of those simultaneously at the same time, and you're increasing which one of those you're doing based on where you're at with that pattern and what you need more of. So I think that's pretty good.
I think that's great.
All right, guys, so obviously this video is about an easy downswing thing, right, or concept. And what's easy there is the left hip going down and forward as the right shoulder goes down and forward, right? The left hip's getting farther from the left shoulder, the right hip and right shoulder getting closer together, just the opposites like that.
Very simple.
That's easy, right? That's simple how to start down. The layers of detail on there are the important parts. You know, like, when am I doing this? How much do I do? How do I know which one to do, right? That's what we're trying to give you there. Obviously, if you can get with JT in person, highly recommend you go get lessons from him. He's all over the place. We'll put his link down in the description down below. If you can't, send swings in, cogornogolf.com. We'll fix it up for you there. It's those little fine-tuned details that an expert coach can look at and say, hey, this is the piece you need to do. More of this, less of that. Literally, I've had things in my swing for years I struggled with and just didn't have someone to identify it. It doesn't need to be that long. You could send swings in and get it fixed very, very quickly. JT, appreciate you being here as always. Thanks,
awesome,
man.
brother. Yeah.